ready? All right. So for the first kid, it was actually pretty simple. My wife and I went to a sperm bank. We bought some sperm. She was inseminated, and 9 months later, we had a baby. But for the second kid, things got a lot more interesting. So we decide we're ready to have a second kid. My firstborn son was 2. We were like, all right, we're ready to do this again. And we go back into our doctor's office. And at this point, my wife and I are 10 years age difference. We are 10 years apart. She's 10 years older than me. So we go into our doctor's office. And at this point, she is 42 and I am 32. And she wants to be the one to carry the baby. And we sit down with our doctor. And we sit down. And the first thing out of his mouth is, medically speaking, Tara, you should be the one to have this baby. And so right away, I said, no, just like that. Nope, nope, that's not gonna happen, sir. And really and truly, I want to be pregnant about as much as, like, that guy, okay? Actually, that guy wants to be pregnant a little more than me, okay? That's how little I want to be pregnant. But he goes on and on with the medical stuff and about why I really should consider it. And I agree, ultimately, to go home for one night and consider it. And so I go back to my apartment, and my wife actually gives me some space. She's just like, all right, you just take the apartment to yourself, and you just think about this, right? And I'm like, all right, fine. And so I'm kind of like pacing around my apartment. I'm trying to like pump myself up. I'm trying to pump myself up into this idea. And the only thing I can compare it to, like the way that I'm acting walking around my apartment, is sort of the way I was the night before my high school softball championships, right? That was my little lesbian point of reference, to like hype myself up. Like I'm just walking around and I'm going, let's go, baby, pregnancy in the clutch, come on. Rah, just pacing all around. And finally I go to the mirror and I'm like, pregnancy in the clutch, come on. And I'm puffing my shirt out. And I'm imagining myself pregnant, but what I'm actually doing is I'm imagining somebody else seeing me pregnant and their reaction. And so I'm going like this. I'm going, you talking to me? You talking to the pregnant lady? You talking to me, right? Like other women, they go home and they knit booties, right? I am De Niro in Taxi Driver. But shock of all shocks, it works. I decide that I am going to go through with it. I decide that I am going to do it. And so I get this kind of preliminary blood work done, and my wife and I go back into the doctor's office, and we sit down, and he opens up my file, and he goes, okay, Tara, he goes, you have a fertility problem. And I said, yes, I know. It's called being a lesbian. What am I paying you for? He goes, no, you have, he laughed too, actually. And he goes, no, you actually have another one. And I said, wow, and he said, listen, though, it is not the end of the world. The thing is, we're just going to have to do things a little differently this second time around. Instead of doing an insemination, we're going to have to do an in vitro fertilization, an IVF. All right, so for anybody in the crowd who does not know the distinction between these two things, an insemination, which is what we did with my firstborn son, is really and truly no more technical than a turkey basting. All right, that is pretty much what it is. For my firstborn son, it was like, we went to the doctor's office and I was there and my wife was there and there was something plastic in between somebody's legs, and it's basically just another Saturday night for a lesbian. He can make the dildo joke. I can't make the dildo joke. Now, an in vitro fertilization is a surgery, okay? It's a surgery. It's where they remove the eggs from your body surgically, they fertilize them in a petri dish, they put the whole mess back in. It is extremely routine nowadays. It's extremely common, and it's really a very low-risk procedure. Literally, 99% of the time, you either get pregnant or you don't, but there is no other potential side effects, right? There's no other risk. 1% of the time, however, you are me. I had the 1% chance, potentially fatal reaction to the first part of the surgery. And I don't want to bore you with all the science behind it. We're just going to say it like this. It was as if when they removed the eggs from my body, it was as if, unbeknownst to me, my uterus had like a car alarm, like a low jack. It was like the second the eggs came out of my body, my uterus was like, where, step away from the uterus, step away from the uterus, right? The police arrived at my uterus. It was terrible. It was really pretty bad. I almost died. It took me an entire month to recover. We could not go forward with the procedure right there and then. We had to wait. But a month goes by, and I do recover. And so we go back into our doctor, and he is like, all right, we can now continue with the putting the eggs back in. We can now continue with the IVF. And we are like, all right, great, we're going to do this. And we are about to walk out of his office. And he goes, wait a second. There's one better option here that I hadn't yet considered. And that is for Shauna, it's my wife, to carry this baby. And he goes on to explain all of the amazing science that makes this fact true. But I'm not listening to any of it because I'm too busy doing the fucking jig. I'm like, diddly diddly dee, sign her up, diddly diddly, there she is. Saved by the bell, right? Oh my God. Are you kidding me? It's like this little last minute understudy, right? And tonight, ladies and gentlemen, Tara Clancy's uterus will be played instead by Shauna's uterus. And in off the bench for Tara Clancy's uterus, it's Shauna's uterus, Amazing. Yes, there she is. So my wife is actually like willing to do this. And I want to take a minute to not undercut with humor the beauty of what happened next. She agrees to carry my baby. She carried my baby. She gets pregnant. And 9 months go by, and all is well. It's going fine. And in the middle of the night, I get that familiar shake, right? This is the second child, so I know what that means. I get that shake, and I hop right out of bed. And she's like, babe, I'm in labor. And I start to put on my clothes, and I grab the overnight bag. And that's when I turn around to face her. And it's like, whoa. This doesn't look anything like it did the first time. She has gone 0 to 100 in like a second. She can like barely kind of stand up and walk. And I'm like, oh my God, what? And I run around to her side of the bed and she's like already sort of screaming. She's got lots of contractions and I have to put her arm over my shoulder to like carry her out of the apartment. And I carry her all the way down the stairs with this arm over the shoulder. I go running into the street. She is like already moaning. I flag down a cab. We get into the cab. And as soon as we get in there, she is just screaming. She's got her legs are up in the air. She's putting the windows down. She's like, ah! I'm like, oh my God. I lean into the cab driver and I'm like, listen, you have to go through the red lights. I'm serious. I'm like, slow down and you got to go. You got to get us to the hospital right now. So this guy goes flying all the way up to the hospital. We get there. She can't get out of the cab. I got to go. I get a wheelchair. I put her into the wheelchair. We go flying up the hospital elevator all the way up to the maternity ward triage. And I turn to the triage receptionist and I'm like, I do not have enough time to fill out any forms. You got to point me to an OR. You got to point me to an OR now. And in the time it has taken me to deliver that sentence to this receptionist, when I turn back, my wife is standing up out of the wheelchair now. She's got her hands on the armrest. She's got her legs spread like this. She's down in this hunchy position. She's got her shirt up. Her boobs are out. Her pants are down. Her ass is out. She's like, ah! Ah! There's pee, there's blood, there's poop, right? And we are in like the triage area, like the waiting room. And there are women there having normal labors, who are like texting their mom, and like, oh my God, What's going on with that woman? And she's, ah. And finally, this nurse comes in, and this nurse is from the island, and she just comes flying into the waiting room, and she's from the island, and she goes, she gonna have that baby on the floor. Get her up in the gurney. She gonna have that baby on the floor. Get her up in the gurney. And here goes my accent, right? I'm like, she gonna have the baby on the floor. She gonna have the baby on the floor. Get her in a gurney, right? They pick her up and they put her on a gurney and they fly her into this room. And like 2 seconds later, our perfectly healthy second son is born. Thank you. Yep. Another little penis for us. And I gotta say, I didn't think of it till later, but I feel like we named this kid a little bit in vengeance, okay? My first son, his name is Ray Clancy, right? Ray Clancy, like he will punch you in the nuts, right? The second guy, we named him Harry. Harry Clancy. He will sell you a used Honda. Thank you very much, everybody.